All right, let's talk about just one number. It's one of those economic stats that you probably hear on the news, but you don't really think about it much. But as we're about to see, this one little number, it tells a fascinating and honestly pretty surprising story about who's really working in a country and who isn't.
So let me just ask you this straight up. In a country like the US, think about everyone who's of working age, everybody who could have a job. What percentage of them do you think are actually in the labor force? Either working or actively looking for a job? Go on, just take a guess in your head.
Okay, you got a number in mind? So let's dig in. Now, if you guessed something pretty high, say 80%, maybe even 90%, you are not alone. That's what most of us assume, right? But the real number is, well, it's way different. And why it's so different is what's really, really revealing.
Okay, but before I just drop the answer on you, we gotta make sure we're all on the same page. We need to be crystal clear about what we're even measuring here. It's an official term that economists use all the time, the labor force participation rate.
And here's the key thing to get, right? The labor force, it isn't just people who have a job. It also includes anyone who's officially unemployed but is, actively sending out resumes, going on interviews, trying to find work. Think of it like the total pool of available workers, the ones already in the game and the ones on the bench ready to play.
And how they calculate it is actually super straightforward. It's just 2 steps. First, you count up everyone who's employed. Then, you add everyone who's unemployed but looking. You get that one big number, and then you just divide it by the entire working age population. That's it. Simple as that.
Okay, so now we know exactly what we're talking about. We've got the definition, we've got the formula. You're ready for the actual number, the big reveal? Let's look at the United States.
62.5%. That's a number. In the US, it's been floating right around there for a while now. Just let that sink in for a second. That means for every 10 people who could be working, almost 4 of them are not only jobless, they're not even looking for a job. That is a massive gap compared to that 80 or 90% most of us guessed, right?
So yeah, the obvious question is, where is everybody else? If they aren't working and they're not looking for work, what's going on with that other, 37.5% of the population?
And this is where it all starts to make sense, right? This is why the number is never going to be 100%. I mean, you've got full-time students, you've got a whole lot of retirees, you have stay-at-home parents or people caring for family members. And of course, some people just choose not to work for their own reasons. And then there's this really important group, what economists call discouraged workers. These are folks who were looking, but they just couldn't find anything, so they've stopped. They've dropped out of the search, so they're no longer officially counted as unemployed. Okay, so that's the US picture. But now let's zoom out and take a trip around the globe, because this is where the story gets really interesting. You'll see that the countries with the highest rates, they're probably not the ones you're thinking of. So just look at this table. The rankings are kind of wild, right? You've got Uganda way up top at 81%. That's so much higher than developed countries like France or Israel, and especially the US. And that tells you something really important right away. A high participation rate doesn't necessarily mean a booming modern economy. In fact, it often means the opposite. It can point to a situation where a lot more people simply have to work, maybe in farming or small informal jobs because there's no social safety net. They work just to survive. And that leads us to a really, really critical point here. These official statistics are great, they're useful, but they have some pretty big blind spots. They just don't tell the whole story of what's happening on the ground. Because the truth is, in just about every country, there's a whole other economy humming along in the shadows, completely off the official books and totally invisible to the statisticians. So you really have 2 economies running side by side. You've got the official one, right? The one that gets reported, taxed, and tracked. And then you have the informal economy. Some people call it the black market. This is all the work that's done for cash, under the table. And none of it, absolutely none of it, gets counted in a number like the labor force participation rate. So when we look at these numbers, we have to remember 2 big things. First, there's that massive uncounted informal economy we just talked about. And second, well, the data itself isn't always perfect. The ability to accurately track and report this stuff varies a lot from country to country. So for some places, you kind of have to take these official figures with a grain of salt. Okay, so after all that, you might be asking, why does this one number matter so much? Well, because even with its flaws, it points to something huge, a country's hidden economic potential.
And this is really the key takeaway from all of this. That huge gap between the current rate and 100%, it's not just a statistic. It's like a giant reservoir of untapped human potential. Think about it. If a country can figure out how to bring even a small fraction of those people into the official workforce, maybe with better childcare or job training or more flexible work, it could just massively boost its entire economy. Every single percentage point we're talking about represents millions of people, millions of brains and skills ready to contribute.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Just imagine, what if a country like the US could boost its participation rate by just 10%, from say 62 to 72%? Can you even imagine the explosion of talent, productivity, and economic growth that would unlock? So you see, this one little number, it doesn't just tell us who's working today. It shows us how much incredible human potential is still just waiting on the sidelines.